Good morning, Nova Scotia. It is Sunday, March the 22nd. Yeah, Thomas isn't here to make sure I get that right, so I have to second guess myself a little bit. Yeah, good morning. It's Sunday, the old day of rest. Today might be a good day to stay home, like every day is right now. Just a quick update on how we're doing. The Hydrostone is still open, and it will be open from 11 to 5 today. And tomorrow we will be closing the store for the day so that our team can get a rest and we can get some stuff back into the store and stock up. So tomorrow, stay home. Our online store is, of course, open, getawayfarm.ca. You can go and check that out. As of right now, we have a drop-off location at the Seaport Market as well as home deliveries. I'm excited to say that there are a number of other producers in the pipes that are going to join us on that store, so we'll be able to get you a wide variety of items, not just our own. And we will also be adding a number of pickup spots throughout the city. So keep an eye out for that. I'll update you as we go. And that's kind of it for a quiet Sunday. Everything at the farm here is turning over tickety-boo. Everything is normal. We are cold. It's windy. We overlook the Bay of Fundy out there, looking over at Parsboro. And boy, we get that wind like something else, man, I tell you. I just wanted to talk real quick this morning about food security and what that means for Nova Scotia. So food sovereignty is the idea that you are completely autonomous as a region and can produce every shred of food that you need. And I believe that's what Cuba's trying to do. That was part of the idea with that revolution down there, was to be food sovereign. Now, food secure means that you can provide the food that you need as a region while still allowing for the fact that bananas are hard to grow here and we like them, so we import them. That's more of a food security situation. And it's coming to light as a number of us go into grocery stores and see that there's not a lot of product available and that it takes a fair bit of time to turn things over. It's coming to light that, obviously Nova Scotia does not have anything even close to food security. And, there have been a number of studies done and a number of reports issued that have alluded to the fact that there's only 2 or 3 days worth of food in the province at any given time, generally speaking. And everything has to come by truck down the highway if Nova Scotia is going to, have food to eat. And in times like this, in times of crisis, when those systems are threatened and that infrastructure is potentially shaken, all of a sudden the curtain lifts and we realize that Nova Scotia can't feed itself. And the idea that Nova Scotia can't feed itself is somewhat absurd. There's only 1 million of us here, barely, thereabouts. And yet Calgary has many, significantly more million. There's only 1 million of us here. There are more Nova Scotians, or there are more Calgarians than there are Nova Scotians, right? And yet we have all the pastures, we have the fields, we have the orchards, we have the shores, we have the forests, we have the oceans. How on earth is it that a province our size, as rich and abundant in food as we are, isn't feeding itself? Why are we going into grocery stores and seeing empty shelves? It's because we don't produce the food here. We rely on other people to produce our food for us. Now, you rewind our history a bit, and the fact of the matter is that's not always been the case. I believe it was sometime in the 50s when things really started to shift away from regional food networks and regional food systems and regional economies. But up until that point, Nova Scotia was incredibly self-sufficient. And I believe that we would be in a far better position today, both economically and socially, if we hadn't abandoned our regional food systems and allowed other governments or other sectors or other companies or anybody other than Nova Scotians to determine how and where our food is produced and where it comes from. So in this time of the COVID pandemic, this potential crisis that we're facing, I'd like to explore this idea a little bit, because what we're facing now in Canada with having to close the borders and make sure that we're self-isolating and doing everything that we need to do to flatten the curve. Our Prime Minister and Cabinet are rightly questioning whether or not they should bring in all the temporary foreign workers that agriculture relies on. And, it's an ongoing, constantly evolving process, and I'm sure that something will be figured out. But the reality is that if our borders close, or if we in any way cannot access labor from faraway countries, Canada cannot produce a significant portion of its food. There are vegetable and fruit and vineyard and a number of other sectors. There are farms all over this province that are questioning whether or not they're going to have the ability to produce food for Nova Scotians this year because they don't have access to the labor that they need in order to do that. Now, that seems kind of absurd that our food security is not only threatened by outside Nova Scotian forces, but also by the fact that we frankly aren't willing to work to put that food on the table. And I hope that this situation will give us all pause to stop and think that, is it a sustainable food economy to rely on our brothers from Mexico and Jamaica and other countries to come here and do the work that frankly we don't want to do as a society and as a culture? We don't value food production in this country. We don't value those who work back-breaking labor in order to produce that food. We don't pay a lot of attention to the processors and the infrastructure that make it possible for vegetables in a field to show up in a store in Halifax and ultimately in your fridge. There are a lot of things about our food system that we need to take a really serious, hard look at and ask ourselves, are we doing this so that it's cheap? Or are we doing this so that we have a sustainable, secure supply of food for our province and people with good, honest, hard work and a rural economy that is thriving? Forestry, agriculture, and fisheries, according to Mr. Ivany, are the three things that give rural Nova Scotia hope for some sort of rural and economic bounce back. We're declining out here. All of our little towns are shrinking. All of our little communities are drying up because there's no work. There's no opportunity out here. The greatest opportunity for thriving in rural Nova Scotia is to fly here from Mexico or Jamaica. It's not right, frankly. And I hope that through this COVID crisis that we all take a step back and take a real hard look at whether or not we're comfortable surrendering our food security, surrendering our rural economies, and allowing other countries to do the work that we're too good to do, frankly. It sounds harsh, but it's important. I'm hoping to, over the next few weeks, be able to talk to some of the other producers in this province that we work with that I know that are in trouble with this worker thing, that are very concerned about Nova Scotian food security. We are all very worried out here in the countryside, and we want you to know in the city, in Halifax. We want you to have a relationship with us, and we want to share with you what is going on out here. We want you to know how worried we are, and we want you to know how disillusioned we are. And we want you to know that we want to provide all the food that you need as our fellow Nova Scotians. But we're really worried that we're not going to be able to, and that outside forces are constraining our ability to actually produce the food that you need. We want to feed you and your kids. We want to feed you and your loved ones. But we rely on outside work, and we rely on economic forces beyond our control to do it. And at the end of the day, we need food, shelter, clothing, water. I mean, let's talk about the basics here, guys. I'm going to stop there. I don't want to give you too much on a Sunday. It's supposed to be a nice old day of rest, right? Stay tuned throughout the week, in the coming weeks. I'm hoping to bring you some other videos. I'm going to approach some different producers and see if they would just send me a video clip telling me their story so that I can share it with you. And if there's any producers that you would like to hear from, if there's anybody you're particularly interested in, please let me know, and I will see if I can track them down. Additionally, in all this time that you have while you're stuck in your house, please look into this temporary foreign worker situation. We have a number of great MPs across this province on both sides of the aisle that are really advocating for us as a province to ensure that we are given access to the labor that we need so that Nova Scotia can produce the food that it needs. But they need encouragement. They need to hear from you. Ottawa needs to hear from you. It's not a provincial government matter. They're advocating really, really hard as well. I can tell you with certainty that I'm hearing a lot of talk about how the Department of Agriculture here in Nova Scotia is really trying to put some pressure on to make sure that Nova Scotian farms gain access to the labor they need. But there's a lot of stories going on, and it's important that we all hear them. So please look into the issue, do some digging, do some research, talk to some people, talk to your friends. I know many of you know farmers. Call them and ask them. It would mean the world to any farmer right now to get a call from somebody they sell food to ask them how they're doing and how the food supply is. That would actually be pretty cool. And that's the beauty of all this, right? You and I are creating relationships across the rural-urban divide, and that's really important because then together we can address some of these issues and we can talk about them and decide how we as a province collectively want to be. Who do we want to be as a province? Do we want to be a food importer or do we want to be a food exporter? Do we want to depend on the outside world, or do we want to be able to provide for ourselves? Do we want to control our destiny, or are we going to continue to let others control it for us? That's really it, right? That's it, you guys. God bless. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow.